Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to the fourth week of our virtual membership summit series. Can you believe that we have been joining each other for 4 weeks now as we have gone through some great training ideas and tools to help us grow membership and retain our members? Remember, all of these sessions have been recorded. If you missed one, or if you have some club members who would benefit from it, they have been recorded and you may watch them on the recording. Also remember, we will have a bonus week next week, and so please make sure you join us then. The first week, we talked about things such as the expectations of clubs, tools in DACDB to help us track membership and engagement, and also some compelling COVID projects to help our members stay engaged, because engagement is so important to our Rotary clubs. We have also in week 2 talked about the 10 intentional membership strategies. And in week 3, we focused exclusively on the secret sauce, our Discover Rotary, or as some clubs call it, Rotary Information Hour, a proven strategy that will help us attract and retain members. This week, we will talk about maybe one of the most difficult subjects for Rotary clubs, changing club culture. We have 2 presenters today. You've met them in the other parts of the series. First, we have Terry Weaver, who is our Assistant Rotary Coordinator. He is a member of the Rotary Club of Greenville. He is a past district governor in District 7750, and he is also district trainer in our district. We're so lucky to have Terry. We are also very fortunate to have with us today, again, Patrick Eakes. Patrick is the Rotary Zone Coordinator, Zone 33, covers from Delaware, Western Pennsylvania, all the way through the end of South Carolina. He was a district governor in 2014-15 in District 7690. He is with the Rotary Club of Crescent, North Carolina. Patrick's in the Greensboro area. And thank you so much, Patrick, for joining us today and for joining us in other parts of this membership summit. Terry, take it away.
Thank you, Beth. I'm starting today with an assumption that you've printed the Changing Club Culture worksheet and you have it in front of you. We'll be building a club culture change plan during our program today. Now, not to worry, if you don't have that, a blank sheet of paper will do. I've been invited today to speak about what I believe is maybe our greatest challenge in Rotary, changing the culture of 36,000 Rotary clubs, one Rotary club at a time. And we need to change that, I think, from business as usual to business of the future. Now, I'm asking your indulgence today to understand that this program is about changing club culture, but we have to do that around some sort of example. So I'm using membership as an example, which is perhaps the #1 culture change need in most Rotary clubs. So here are some things I learned from traveling our district over the course of my year as governor and now traveling districts from here to Pennsylvania. There are 2 things that I've learned Rotarians don't like. And one of those is the way things are. I don't like the speakers. I don't like the meals. I don't like the president. I don't like the meeting place. But what really rocks them to the core, what they really hate, is when something changes. So that's really our challenge here today, is to figure out how to take something that humans are naturally resistant to and make it into a process that actually works. I'd like to share with you some ideas from a motivational speaker and life coach, Darren Hardy.
To achieve what you have not, you must become what you are not. You have to grow into your goals. Look, if you're struggling to achieve your goals, it's because your goals are above your head. I'm sorry to say, but your goals are too big for you. You keep bludgeoning your head against the wall, but it's not going to help. The only way to achieve goals bigger than you've been able to achieve before is to become more than you've ever been before.
So did you get that part? The only way to achieve goals bigger than you've been able to achieve before is to become more than you've ever been before. We have to learn some different skills and we have to apply some different strategies if we want a different result. So the challenge everybody faces after they come away from something like this is your fourth session where you have come hopefully away with some good ideas. How am I going to take this back to the club? Think about the last time that you took something back to your board without any preparation, basically just came to a board meeting, sat down and laid a great idea on them. If you're like me, you probably got pretty well chewed up by the elder naysayers. They had all kinds of reasons why that wasn't a good idea, and you found yourself clawing your way back even to neutral so you could bring this idea back to the table. So what we're going to do today is we're going to learn a playbook of culture change skills. We'll be using membership as an example, but this isn't about membership. Membership is probably our biggest culture change challenge because, in fact, we have about half of the clubs in District 7750 that have developed a culture of membership decline. That membership decline is treated as just a natural occurrence. And that culture will have to change in order for those clubs to have any different result with respect to membership. But I'm hoping this skill set becomes part of a Rotary takeaway for you today, something you can use in your business, perhaps your family, your church, your neighborhood, and of course, hopefully your Rotary Club. So here's the situation most people are in. Everyone's happy with the status quo. Low expectations. Everyone's okay with a net decline of a couple of members a year. That seems to be a magic number in Rotary clubs. They can just shake off a couple of members a year, excuse themselves. Then we go to the next year, it's lather, rinse, repeat, and we're down 2 more members. Nobody sees a problem with that. So you see yourself basically as just all by yourself. Nobody else gets it. Nobody sees it the way you see it. And not to mention that humans have an extraordinary ability to make excuses. And they'll reinforce those excuses with pushback to try to avoid that change that you're trying to make in the organization. First, you have to decide whether you want to be a change agent. That's a critical decision, and I hope it's a decision you reach today, that you are willing to do things to make sure the campground is in better shape when you leave it than when you found it. And you also recognize if we keep doing what we're doing, we'll get more of what we got. If your club is one of those, roughly half of the clubs in District 7750 that have this culture of net membership decline, we're going to have to try something different. What we've been doing has not been working. So our intention today is to go through an exercise focused on changing club culture with respect to membership growth and retention. Now, if this is not your problem, you can apply this to anything else. If you're having a difficult time executing new service projects, and it's a cultural pushback, you could use it there. You could use it with respect to supporting the Rotary Foundation. You can use these basic principles anywhere, but we're going to use examples today relating to growth and retention. So here's the problem. Culture can't be changed directly. Culture is somewhat vaporous. You can't just grab a hold of it and say, I want this to be different. So what you have to do is first, change strategies to those likely to get the results we want. Stop doing the things we have been doing. As Steve Jobs said once, saying no to one thing is saying yes to something else. Secondly, then, to get people to change their behaviors to support those new strategies, to get people to behave differently, and of course, accomplish some short-term wins, show some progress, and show some accomplishment along the way. And then once those start happening, once those behaviors start happening and you reinforce those, the culture will follow. The culture will come along for the ride. Now, these are not things I thought up. These lessons came out of a book by the name of Leading Change by John Kotter, who's a Harvard Business School professor, arguably the world's best authority on organizational change. And he spotted 8 or 9 defects in the way people usually manage change. And he's provided each of these 9 antidotes that we'll be talking about today. Each one of these is designed to remedy a classic pitfall that managers and leaders fall into when they're trying to lead change. Here's number 1. Kotter's number 1 is reset the bar. Redefine what good is. In this case, consistent, moderate membership growth. Kotter also suggests if you can't get people's attention, create a crisis. Now, in the case of roughly half our clubs, you don't need to create a crisis. You've already got one. The point is to get the members to understand that. And what would happen if we keep on doing what we're doing to make this new goal of redefined what good is an urgent priority within the club? So what we're going to do here on your worksheets, in their first section, you see a spot for defining your new bar. Now, what I would like you to do, since we're doing this virtually, we would normally do this in sort of a report out format, but since we're doing this virtually, go down on your control panel and find the chat button. Find the chat button, and if you will, type in your statement of your new bar for your club. What does good look like? And this will be perhaps only one sentence, at the max two. So we're not talking about a novel here. What does a new bar look like? What is your club's new bar with respect to, say, membership? Or if you don't want to use that as your example, what are you going to achieve with respect to Rotary Foundation support? What are you going to achieve with respect to service projects in your club this year that's different from the past? What does the new bar look like? So we see some adjustments of the bar. Goals should be regular, like monthly or every 60 days, not just whenever. That would be important in terms of your reassessing the bar. Retaining or attaining a diverse membership. Good is 4 or 5 prospective members each month. That's in a club that does Discover Rotary. 4 or 5 prospective each month would net us 2 or 3 new members each month. John Kimball says good is 4 to 5 net every year. So he would define good as a net gain of 4 to 5 members every year. Okay, now here's one that's interesting. It is a goal, but not exactly a new bar. Additional emphasis on recruiting younger members. That could become a bar if we said we are going to attract 1 or 2 members within an age range. That would be a reset bar. So what I'm seeing in the chat is some of these are strategies and some of these are ideas and some of them are a reset bar. And it's important to be clear here, the difference between setting the bar and how to, okay? You want to take the how to out of it. For example, new types of memberships, that's a how to. The point is we want a specific number of new members coming into the club, and that's what good looks like as far as resetting the bar is concerned. Okay, those are some good ideas. We appreciate your participation in that. And we'll move on to Cotter's principle number 2, and that'll be presented by Patrick Eakes.
Thank you, Terry, and thank you all for your participation there in the chat. I think Terry said it, but I want to reemphasize that it is important that you are really clear about what good is, because that's going to be part of communicating to your club exactly what good or what the bar looks like. So that's going to be an important part of this. Another important part, as you see on your screen, is doing an adequate and an honest and a sober assessment of where your club is. You have to figure out where you stand as a club so that then you can start to build the plan to reach what good looks like. And there are a few ways to get that assessment of your club. The Rotary Club Health Check is a particularly good one that is supplied by Rotary. It is available, as you can see, Terry created a tiny URL that will get you right to it. Makes that quite easy, and you can do that either as a club exercise, say at a meeting, for instance, or can also be done by your board. There are a number of ways to do that. But what it will do is give you a very good look at where your club is. You might think of it as your annual physical. You know, your doctor normally does a physical and you sort of come away, you're okay in some areas. And if you're like me, he says, dude, I told you last year you need to lose weight. Same thing. That club health check is a particularly helpful tool for that. Now, there are other ways you can go about this. Certainly surveys of your members. And we tend to think of our current members, but you can supplement that by surveying your members who are leaving, who might give you some interesting feedback. You might also, with an entrance survey for people who are joining your club, you might find out what it is about your club that they found attractive, what's working well. All of those can help produce a good, solid assessment. You can have a brainstorming session during a club assembly. You know, Rotary asks us to have 4 club assemblies each year, and sometimes we wonder what to do with that time. Doing this assessment can be a very healthy exercise and use of that time. So I'd like you now to go to your worksheets, and just below the section where you just redefined good, put down and add in the chat box, just as you did before, what your assessment tactic is going to be. How are you going to conduct that assessment of your club? So what we're thinking here, what we're asking for in the chat and on your worksheet are the specific steps you're going to take to create an honest assessment of your club. So it looks like our early participants here are finding value in the survey. It certainly creates a good communication tool for your members. Renee says, have used the club health check. That's great. I do think it's one of the better tools that Rotary supplies to us in this area. Okay, well, though you're on the right track there in terms of creating that communication pathway for your membership to the leadership of your club. So go ahead and fill that out on your worksheet, and then we're going to move on to the next topic, which is creating a coalition. Now, the reason that creating a coalition is so important is that you don't want to be one person singing into the night about this area you think that the club needs to move. You know, that kind of has the basis of a Don Quixote kind of story, right? So creating a coalition of leaders in your club. They may be leaders because of a formal title. They may be leaders because of their standing in your club and the respect they have. But creating a coalition of like-minded leaders in your club is going to provide better support for your vision, for where you want the club to go. I would suggest now that you go ahead and write just on your worksheet who you are going to recruit to be a part of that coalition. We have 4 spaces there, but some of you who are in a little bit larger club situation, you may find that you need to build a little bit bigger coalition than that. So this is the coalition you're going to build that's going to support your vision and the implementation, getting to that vision. Now here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to ask you to list those names in chat. That might be counterproductive. So we won't do that. But please do. This is an essential part of your plan, and particularly in the early part of the implementation to be able to create this coalition. So please go ahead and wrap that up, and then I'm going to turn the program back over to Terry.
Thanks, Patrick. The next important step, and really absolutely essential, is creating a vision. People want to follow some sort of vision, something they can believe in. And in this case, we're talking about a vision of the future that's different from the past, giving your members something to believe in. And people regularly miss just what a vacuum is created when there isn't a vision out in front of the club. You might want to include your coalition in the formation of that vision, or in fleshing it out into the communication strategy. And it doesn't have to be complicated. The year I was president of my club, almost just after Y2K, the vision was really simple. More Rotarians involved in more projects in more of the world. Just something people could get a hold of. So here's some examples of what visions might look like. They're imaginable. They're a word picture of the future. Something that describes the future in terms that is a person can actually visualize. They're desirable, that they appeal to the long-term interests of the stakeholders, that it's something the members would want for the club. Feasible and focused, and then with some flexibility. In other words, how we get there is not particularly a concern with respect to the vision. The vision is a statement of the future, different from the past, and it really it ties in directly with that raise the bar, what good is. The vision will, of course, define what good will look like. And then finally, that it's easy to communicate. Now, as some of you know, when I'm not doing Rotary or grandkids or something else, I have an encore career coaching small businesses, and I regularly get asked to help somebody with an incentive compensation program. Just a quick show of hands, how many of you have ever been on an incentive compensation program? You do this, I'll pay you that. Okay, fairly common. Well, one of the litmus tests for that I share with business owners is the 1 martini test. And the 1 martini test is this: if the comp structure is simple enough that the employee on the plan can explain it to the spouse in no more than 1 martini, it's simple enough to go to the street. So here's an idea of a corporate vision. Our goal is to reduce our mean time to repair parameters so they're perceptually lower than all major competitors inside the United States and out. In a similar vein, we've targeted new product development cycle times, order process times, and other customer relevant processes for change. Wow. A fundamentally defective part of this is that it includes how. Visions usually don't, good visions usually don't include how. How about this one? We're going to become faster than anyone in our industry at satisfying customer needs. I once worked in a Fortune 1000 company that the vision statement and the tagline were one and the same: excellence in customer satisfaction. That was the whole thing. That pretty much said it all. So here's an idea. This is an idea of one of the best visions of all time in my book anyway. John Kennedy stood up in front of a joint session of Congress and said, "I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth." A multi-billion-dollar project summarized in one sentence. Landing a man on the moon, returning him safely to Earth, and of course, all that before this decade is out. He could have said, "Our mission is to become the international leader in the space industry through maximum team-centered innovation and strategically targeted aerospace initiatives." It might have been a little tougher to get the vote of Congress to go fund that. So here's an idea for a vision of a Rotary Club. Our Rotary Club will continue its legacy of community service, utilizing our influential membership to assist agencies in our community to achieve their missions. Moderate amount of corp speak there. I wonder sometimes if this is the vision of some clubs, which spend an whole bunch of time and effort raising money, and then the projects are executed by other organizations under other brands to whom we send checks. What about our Rotary Club will be the growing, effective, vibrant force in our community, making it a better place to live. Something people could get behind, something people can shoulder up against. I really like the new vision for Rotary International, including ourselves. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. And you'll notice that C is a component of this. If you haven't done this a whole lot, it's much easier to come up with a good vision if you start it with I see. So let's give this a shot individually. What is your vision for your club? Take the reset bar that you had in mind, forget how, but just focus on what does your club look like at the end of this year that's different from the way it's looked before. Now, the answers are in the back of the book. If you refer to page 4 of your handout, what you'll see is several sample vision statements for Rotary clubs. You can pick and choose any of those that you like, cherry pick those, or make up your own from scratch. And again, my suggestion is you start with I see. So if you will, compose your vision, and then once you have it pretty well together, type it into the chat. We'll take a look at some of those. And then, of course, after you get the chat filled in, take some time to jot it down on your worksheet so you don't lose track of it. Your vision is probably one sentence, no more than 2. John Kimball says, I see growing excellence and growth in serving youth needs in our community. Excellence and growth in serving youth needs in our community. Someone else. Okay, Beverly has a vision. I see our club embracing the Rotary ideals and vision to make a sustainable impact on our community and world. Got a few more coming in here. I see our Rotary Club being active in our community in helping others. Now, here's one that really has the vision component to it. I see our club becoming the talked about membership organization around town. The talked about membership organization because of our standout community work. We're not just good as anybody, we're better than most. Okay, got some ideas there. Let's move on to another Cotter change management principle, and that is communicating the vision. For that, you need to build a script. And here's an idea on how to do that. Now, this didn't come out of the Cotter book. This came actually out of another book. I don't have very many original ideas of my own. And this SPIN algorithm is hugely helpful. I use it all the time. And here's what that looks like. The S stands for situation, just explaining the current facts. And stick to facts that are indisputable, that are easily proven if challenged, and not an opinion, just explaining the current situation. Then the problem. The problem with that is connect the dots for folks. Not everybody realizes that there is a problem with consistent declining membership, a net drop of 1 or 2 members a year. They don't see the problem with that's how we got from 50 to 40 in 5 years. And that's how we got from 40 to 30 in the next 5, because many of them weren't around. You know, a lot of your members don't realize what the long-term trend of membership might be in your club. Then the implication, the I, that means, what if we don't do something different? Here's an outcome we're not going to like. So we've got a situation, explain the problem, and then what that problem means to the club if left unchanged. And then frankly, and finally, the need. And the need really is executing on your vision. So you're making a case for your vision in the context of a situation, following that up with articulating the problem. Don't assume people just get it. Then articulating the implication. Don't assume people understand the what if either. And then the need, of course, is an explanation of what you'd like your club to become. So here's some examples. Our club's been on a steady downward membership trend, losing an average of 2 members per year for the past 5 years. Clear-cut explanation of the situation, easily provable by statistics. The problem with that is the club has learned to accept membership decline as a natural occurrence and has forgotten that growth, not attrition, is the goal. A little bit more frank way to say that is the club has learned to embrace membership failure. Steady, consistent membership decline is, in my book, defined as membership failure. And frankly, folks, if we're failing, we might as well use the word, because that's what it is. The implication: if we stay on this track, we're going to find ourselves with steadily smaller meetings and potential members asking, is this really a group I want to be part of? A club member, a prospective club member that someone brings to a Rotary meeting, sees 12, 14, 16 people in the room, looks around and says, I thought this was Rotary International. Where is everybody? Once we lose the ability to attract members, it's only a matter of time until we all age out together and the club goes out of business. And this is a phenomenon that occurs in all districts, ours included. We do have clubs where the median age of the membership is advancing at a rate of almost 1 year per year, because in fact, we're not bringing new members into our club, and new members by definition would likely bring the median age down somewhat. So it's just marching on forward 1 year per year, and we all age out together and we become the last generation of Rotarians in our town. Then we get to the need. Therefore, we need to help the members understand that growing the club is essential to our survival. This connects back to the implication that we are managing our way out of business. We need to help them understand that attracting more members is in everyone's best interest, including the new members. Rotary is a good thing. We've all put several hours into this program to see if we could figure out how to grow our Rotary clubs. We believe in it. Wouldn't it be a good thing to share with more other people? And we need to provide a compelling vision of a growing, vibrant club and inspire them to make it that way. So let's do your spin example on your worksheet. For now, let's start with the situation, explaining the current facts, and we'll just do this on the worksheets for this round. And then the problem. What is the problem with that? And these are fairly short statements. The current facts are no more than 1 or 2 sentences. The problem is usually statable in 1 sentence, as is the implication, maybe a couple. So let's start first with the situation. Who's completed a statement of the situation that they believe, that you believe needs to be changed in your club? Just hold down your space bar and tell us that statement of situation. Doesn't have to, a lot of explanation, just your statement of the situation.
Gary, John Kimball, mine is cryptic, but very simple, not diverse or young enough.
We are not diverse or young enough. Someone else, situation you'd like to see changed in your club.
We've become complacent.
We've become complacent.
We're an active, large club, but we still lose members every year for legitimate reasons.
Okay, and tell me more about that.
Well, we lose members, but I don't believe our membership really understands how critical it is to continuously try to bring in new people. We just don't have people, our veteran members bringing visitors, potential members.
So is that maybe the actual situation? Our veteran members are not recommending Rotary to potential new members? Okay. That'll work. Somebody else.
Not consistently attracting new members.
Not consistently attracting new members. And the key word to that is consistent.
Yep.
The key word to that is consistent. We learned 2 sessions ago that we will lose members every year, fairly predictably, over the course of the year, all the way through June 30th. So this consistently attracting thing needs to be starting right now so that we build essentially the replacement cadre for those people who will leave, some for reasons we can control, some for reasons we can't, so that we have enough critical mass to absorb that and end up with a net gain. Okay? So behind that question of our new members, our members are not bringing new prospects to the table and attracting new members to our club, how would you describe the problem with that?
So Terry, I was thinking the problem is that, and I was the consistent membership, it's Ramona. The problem is that current membership is not, and I don't know if motivated or inspired, what might be the right word.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. They're not motivated or inspired enough to recommend Greenville Rotary to other people. That brings up something, by the way, folks, when we get to the communication section of this, I believe really your primary communication audience right now, at least, is your own club members, reminding them why they're in Rotary. The fact is, if Rotarians were more sold on Rotary, they'd be more likely to recommend it to other people, and we'd be awash with new member candidates. Implication. Who has an implication they'd be willing to share?
Well, I think our membership has become a little bit complacent. So that's our situation. The problem I see is that we are getting a little bit stagnant sometimes. We have a lack of energy. And I think over time that's going to make our club less attractive. So, and that's part of the implication as well. Yeah. We will start to lose members, and we won't be able to attract members as much as we have been. We've been very fortunate at maintaining our membership. But if we don't change something, I don't think we can continue that.
And your recommendation of the need, therefore, is?
Still working on that.
I would give you an idea, and that is I saw our club adopt one new big service project in the past year, and it really did change the game. We had people come off the bench who had never been involved in anything before and pitch into this service project, which was the adoption of the poorest elementary school in Greenville County. And we're all over this school. A couple of weeks from now, we're going to provide new shoes to about probably, I'm guessing, 100 of those students.
I think that's a great point, and it really makes me realize that, I mean, we do a lot of service projects, but we don't tell anyone about them, including half of our membership.
Right.
And we definitely don't report it to Rotary International. So it's probably a visibility within our own club as well as the community.
Yeah. You know, that's kind of a classic deal. And the value of this approach is that you're explaining a situation that a lot of people don't even realize is a fact. You're connecting the dots to a problem, and the implication is if our club remains as dull and boring as it is in terms of what the members get out of it, we're going to have trouble sustaining ourselves. We need to invent some new stuff, and then we need to redouble our efforts to engage members into those things, to promote, etc. One of the things we've learned is putting those events on the calendar, on the DAC-DB calendar, as a registration event. So you actually know who's put their hand up in the air Moreover, you can go back to everybody who's not responded and say, hey, I want to remind you, we're going to go out and clean up the park 2 weeks from now. Wanted to be sure you're going to be there. Okay, back to Patrick Eakes for the 4 remaining principles of change from John Cotter.
Thank you, Terry, and thank you to all of you. You've already set the stage for some of the other items that we're going to talk about. I already hear it in your words and what you're thinking. The next item is teach. Okay, we've reset the bar. We have made an honest assessment of our club. We've built a coalition, created a vision, and built a script. So now it's time to put it into use. Your club members need you to teach them how to grow the club, if membership is the area that you're working on here. They don't know how to do that. And the way you know that is your club would already be growing if they knew how to do that. So it's time to teach. You all know how to do this now with what we've been talking about. All of these steps to this point put you in a position to teach your members and to put into practice what you've learned, to share it with them. You want to create a club experience that is going to be so attractive that your club is irresistible. So that requires using different strategies than your club has been using. And in a previous week, we talked about 10 intentional strategies that you can put into play. Chief among those, of course, the Discover Rotary information type of hour. And you want to achieve different behaviors that are going to support those new strategies you're putting in place. So please enter there on your worksheet, and also press your space bar and share with all of us what different strategy, what your teaching part is going to look like. What is it that you want to teach? How are you going to put that into place? Somebody willing to share what you're going to teach out to your members? You've got your script, your spin script.
Okay, I'm not sure this is what you're looking for or not. So we have a pretty established membership, but what I've realized is they don't all understand what Rotary is all about. So we have really been encouraging our members to attend the Rotary Leadership Institute. And when even they might have been a member for years, and they come back from that a totally different Rotarian. They find out what other Rotary clubs are doing, and of course they want to do those projects too. And they meet new people, they understand the new people they meet, and they just come back so enthusiastic that we are really, we send probably 3 or 4 members every year and pay for their expenses.
Okay, so supporting and encouraging that attendance at Rotary Leadership, and then maybe having them report back to your club. This is what I learned. The broader world of Rotary. These are the ideas I have. And what's going to come out of that is the energy and the passion and the enthusiasm that is contagious. It is absolutely contagious. Those are also members who are much more likely to go share that with someone outside of your club. So thank you, Renee. Okay, let's go on to the next item, which is communication. I always say that communication is such an essential part of leadership. It absolutely is. You want to communicate, and communicate some more. As you can see on the slide, take your initial instinct and take that up by a factor of 10. It's going to take more communication than you might think. It takes a while for that message to penetrate. And people need to receive the message, the vision, the plan. They need to hear it one-on-one. They need to hear it in a large group. They need to see it in print. They need it reminded in email. Communicate all the ways you can. Make that message consistent. You have a spin script. Okay, you already have the basis of the message there, and push it out, push it out, push it out. So this is your opportunity to write down your communication plan, and maybe to share with us, use your space bar to share with us 1 or 2 nuggets out of that you're going to do that's going to be different, that's going to make a difference for your club. And what Renee said fit into that, frankly. Having them come back and to report. That doesn't require the direct membership chair or president doing that. That's a good way to inspire others to do it. And by the way, you end up with some coalition members there too. Terry Weaver with an idea. Teach them an answer to what's Rotary, because if they can answer that, they can talk about Rotary effectively to others. Sometimes we feel it in our bones, but we don't quite know how to put that into word.
Okay, I hate to talk so much.
You go right ahead, Renee.
Well, last Friday, I did a presentation to our club, and we had some people there in person and some people Zooming in. And that's pretty much what I did. Is I reviewed the membership of the vision of Rotary International, made sure everybody was clear on our objectives and avenues of service, and that, just reminded everybody of that, and stole some of Terry's words from his last presentation, that if Rotary is so great, then why aren't you bringing more people in? Why don't you want to share this? And I showed them the data about our club, and we talked about the demographics. And we did some other fun things. I had a Rotary song for them, a little video from the international president, and it was kind of an educational situation.
Yeah, we forget sometimes, in just the period of 2 or 3 years, how much of our club turns over, how many new people are in there who don't really know why we're talking about this 4-way test, or why we're doing this or that, that's among our routines. It may not be so obvious to those newer members, or especially to a guest who may be visiting, trying to figure out what in the world are these people doing. I think that's a great way to put into place some education. That's super.
Somebody gave me an idea.
Okay.
I think it might have been John Kimball or perhaps Chris Jones, of why don't you lead with what's important to you? And I started leading my what's Rotary answer with, well, actually, it's my #1 business, personal, and professional network. And our mission is to do good in the world, to make our communities a better place.
Terry, I think you and I had that conversation on more than one occasion, to just simply share why I love Rotary and why I'm a member.
I've completely turned it around. The thing I start with is because it's my #1 business, personal, and professional network.
And I care enough about you to want you to maybe potentially share it and
There
experience.
you go.
I call that telling my Rotary story.
That's right. And so we're talking about 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and you set the hook, right? You set the hook. I've seen people say, I'm in Rotary because I can't believe it. I've had the opportunity to save lives. It was, what? You did what?
It's the
And then an opportunity to talk some more.
30-second elevator speech.
Sure. Great. So that reinforces the need for communication in all ways. As I said, one-on-one, broad audience, print, all the ways you can communicate. Keep communicating. You're going to need to keep that vision going. You take someone with a thick head like me, I have to hear it a few times before it penetrates. And I suspect there may be a few people in your club who are like that too, who are going to need that message delivered multiple times in multiple ways to get through to them. Our next step, confront. Now, I was born in the South. I was raised in the South. we don't do confrontation, right? We sort of beat around the bush to get to where we're going. Some of you who maybe weren't raised in the South and moved here, you probably noticed that right away when you got here. I see Terry Weaver chuckling, who came up in the Northwest, in the Midwest, where they spit it straight. But you may encounter naysayers in your club who don't want to move along with this vision. The kind of people who would keep you on the glide path to oblivion if nothing changes. I bet some of you in the course of your work career have worked with an employee who you might term toxic. I certainly have. Or maybe you've been in a toxic work environment. Well, if you manage someone who is toxic like that, typically you try to win them over. If not, you try to neutralize them, so at least they're not so contagious. And in some cases, we have to move them out. And I think you're likely to see the same thing in a Rotary Club if you have a naysayer. Now, it's one of the reasons to build that coalition, because the coalition can help you with the toxic Rotarian, particularly if you have built a coalition with some of the long-established members who are known as leaders regardless of their title. But as a leader of your club, your allegiance is to the club. It's not to that toxic member. It is to the club and moving the club forward, and that's part of being a leader. So you have to be prepared for how you're going to deal with that obstacle, which may be a person. So I would love to hear from one of you all while you make a note on how you're going to handle that situation, how you're going to confront. Love to hear how you're going to approach that. How do I deal with that toxic member who is feet in the concrete, who, like Terry said earlier, hates change? How are you going to deal with that? Because you want to be prepared for it. It may come up. Anyone? Ramona?
Yep. So I think you have to acknowledge where the person's at. And then I think you can start asking the whys. And for some people, it might be those baby steps, right? You just start peeling it back and try to find some neutral ground for both of you. And once you hit that point, then you can start, I think, to change the tide and slowly shift to the club's objectives, right? And what's best for the club. But first, I think you actually have to meet the person where they're at, and not dismiss whatever they're feeling, right? Because it's real to them.
Thank you for reminding me of that. I've got a tough conversation to have with a 17-year-old daughter tonight, and that's going to be helpful. It will also be helpful in a Rotary Club situation. So thank you. That it's exactly right. We need to be heard when we disagree, right?
Yeah.
But presumably that person's been in the club for a long time for a reason, and there's a way to find that common ground. That's great. We are right at 1 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and move to step 9, which is to set up short-term wins. And I bet all of you immediately know what we're thinking about here. If you get those little wins early, they lead to bigger wins later. They build momentum. They lend credibility to the effort. I think that you can certainly put your coalition to work in terms of kind of baking in those short-term wins. If you want to start a Discover Rotary hour, for instance, and you've already got a couple of people who want to come to Rotary and they know you're going to be president, they're excited about what you're doing, bring them to a Discover Rotary hour and they're going to join. And there's going to be a win off your first Discover Rotary hour. There are lots of other ways that you can build in the small wins that members are going to see. And what happens is the small wins will build to an intermediate win. And then the vision you have is going to take on a life of its own. It's going to build its own momentum and self-fuel. So think about how you can build in those small wins early in the process to reinforce the effort. And I'd love to hear from one or two of you about how you can do that, because I bet many of you have put this together and have used this kind of tactic before in your other parts of your life. You want to create a small win. Any of you ever had something you wanted to do with your board of directors and you talked to people in advance before you got in there and said, you know, this is why we want to do this, and you were able to have some support to get that small win to help you go where you want to go? Okay, well, I won't belabor it because it is 102, but at the bottom of that last slide was a key piece of advice, which is to keep your eye on the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to create a culture of growth where it's in everybody's DNA. It's in the club's DNA. This is what we do. We're growing as a club. So as you go through these steps that Terry and I and you have talked about, keep your eye on that ultimate prize. Thank you all again for letting me be with you today.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Terry Weaver, for a compelling presentation. We've had 4 weeks of this virtual membership summit, and we have learned some great ideas. We promised you practical, usable ideas for changing club culture and growing your Rotary Club. I hope you feel that we've delivered on it. Remember, we've had a bonus round coming up next week on courageous club turnarounds. Courageous club turnarounds. And we will have a large part of next week set aside for you to share your own ideas, your successes, and your challenges. Thank you to Carol Burdett, our district membership chair, for all the work she's done on this series. And again, Faith Line, our district administrator, for her behind the scenes work. Most of all, I want to thank you, our club presidents, our club membership chairs, our presidents-elect. You are the ones on the front lines. Nothing gets done in Rotary without our Rotary clubs, and nothing really gets done without the club leadership wanting to implement ideas like you have just heard. You've got a tough year. There's no point in pretending otherwise. Growing membership is especially tough during a global pandemic, and you're the first ones to try this. So thank you. I hope you have found this interesting and usable. I hope you join us next week for the bonus round. Thank you so very much for giving us 4 hours of your time already. 1 more hour next week for the bonus round, and I think we will be ready to go grow Rotary in District 7750. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.